it's such a winning formula and it's so simple, but most people think that it's like, it's a trick or something
Yeah.
like literally like if you.
Okay, everyone. Welcome to Talk is Cheap, the Fight Against Mediocrity podcast. I'm extremely excited to have Jarrod Glandt here with us today. He's the president of Cardone Enterprises, the host of Young Hustlers podcast, and an all-around awesome guy, family man, businessman. Super excited to have you here.
Yeah, great to be here, Kevin. Appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, no problem. And I just want to get off and rolling. So I love to hear more about the story. How did you meet Grant Cardone and go from being a salesperson to president of Cardone Enterprises, a $150 million company?
Well, I mean, that's an 11, almost 12-year story. So I'll give you the Cliff's Notes version of it. I was, when I first met Grant, or kind of came across him, I was kind of a weird point in my life, and I had done well early on. Was selling advertising, making, 20 grand a month at 21 years old, and was blowing all my money. And then, did what any responsible 21-year-old would do, is I blew it all on partying and traveling and ended up broke. And so I went from this, I had this whole cycle of going from like, everybody telling me, oh my gosh, you're making so much money, you're so young, you're going to be so successful, to being like a total loser on unemployment, doing drugs every day. And I was kind of struggling for like 4 years, and then moving back and forth between Austin and San Diego. And then finally ended up back in San Diego. My dad sent me a YouTube link. He said, this was in 2010. He goes, you should go work for this type of guy. And so I watched like all 20 videos Grant had on his YouTube channel at the time, and was like, I'm going to try to work for this guy. So then I called the office every day for a month and a half until they finally interviewed me, had me up for an interview, and I got hired. And then I just kind of kept that tenacity the whole time. So, got in, acted like, the business was mine, not in an unprofessional way, but just would make decisions based on what I would do if I was the owner of the business. And so having had that mindset from the start, I think, is what really allowed me to continue to grow and become the next guy that he needed me to become.
Yeah, no, I really like that, because despite what people may think, some people may say, hey, no, he was just in the right place in the right time. I don't believe that at all. I think, you have a ton of tenacity and work ethic to be able to do what you've done inside of his organization. Tell me about those. Well, I guess tell me about when you were crushing it, to those 4 years when it was just tough. Like, because I think a lot of people might be there that are listening. They might.
Well, I mean, I got a false sense of why I was successful, like, and the company that I worked for, a big $1 billion company, they redeployed my territory, so it cut my pay, and it still would have been, I still would have been making, 120, 130 grand a year, but pride, I guess, whatever you want to call it. I was like, I'm out of here. And I left, and then I was, I left to go work for a startup company. And the guy who, had started that company was, ended up stealing from us, not paying us. And so then I ended up without a job. And then I was like, I got to find a job. And it was like the first time that I really had so many opportunities, like, not like people were knocking my door down opportunities, but like there was so much, like I finally realized like how vast the world was. And I was like, it was so overwhelming. Like it was paralyzing. Like I couldn't move. And so that's, by that time I'd already started, smoking weed every day and, doing blow on the weekends. And it was just tough, just trying to figure out that next thing. And I did the most dangerous thing, which is I stopped, I've got on unemployment, and I just became a loser. Like I was just writing unemployment checks for 9 months or however long they'll let you stay on for. And, you know, like Grant says, when you're going through hell, don't stop. And I stopped. And so it was tough to kind of get re-engaged. And really I think that was the thing that got me about Grant, is because his message was so hard. It was like getting punched in the face, like, yo, wake up, And I was like, oh, wow. Like I need to wake up. And then it was like this sign of, dude, I got to go work for him. So then I moved, and then, go back to what you were saying, like, hey, people in that spot right now, once I got super clear on like, I want out of this, like I started taking action that supported that decision. I think a lot of times people get stuck or stop, and they stop taking action or moving. And people that are unemployed or don't have a job, they don't go out and get a job. They're like, it's tough. It's hard. I don't want to get a job right now. Like you just have to keep moving. And that momentum is what will create opportunities for you. And so, some may call it luck or fate or God or whatever, but our paths cross for some reason. And so like, you just have to you got to get super clear. The most important thing that you can ever do in your entire life is figure out what you want your life to look like in 30 years, and then figure out what that's going to cost. Those are two different things. Like sometimes people have these ideas of what they want their life to be like when they're 40 or 50 or 60, and they never figure out how much it costs to get that or keep it. And so what ends up happening is they have an incorrect operating basis their entire life until they get too far down the road and they realize their plan wasn't for enough. And so I would recommend that anybody right now, and I wish I would have had the ability to done this because it would have gotten me motivated enough to actually move, is you need to take the time to figure out, like, let's just call it 60 years old. Like when you're 60, what do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to live? Cars you want to drive, restaurants you want to go to, vacations you want to take, how you want to spend time with your family, how you want to contribute to charities. Like at any point in life, a deep dive on this is going to be one of the most powerful things you can do in life, but especially when you're like a little lost, because when people are lost, the thing that happens is they look for the thing that they're going to do. It's like, how old are you?
28.
So you're 28. So how many times in your life were you asked, what do you want to do when you grow up?
Too many to count.
It's an impossible question to answer.
Yeah.
Like how are you supposed to know at 14 or 15 or 16 or 17, like what you actually want to do? Like you grow so much that like the better question to ask is, how do you want your life to look in the future? Yeah. And that way you're pushing for an outcome more so than a vehicle, because the distracting point comes in when you're like, oh, I'm going to work in finance. And then you're like trying to figure out that finance thing when an opportunity that isn't finance could go right past you. That would be your fast track to get where you want to go. And so I always tell people, like, one of the most powerful things you can do to get motivated, stay motivated, and keep your eyes open for opportunity is figure out what you want your life to look like, figure out how much it's going to cost, and reverse engineer the plan all the way back to where you actually know, like if you got a job, you got a landscaping company, or, you're a doctor, or, you're a chiropractor, like, exactly what you need to do tomorrow to continue to move towards your goal. And then that way you can make adjustments on a day-to-day basis rather than going, oh, well, that year was a waste because you weren't paying attention.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what does Jarrod's life look like at 60 years old?
Dude, it's a lot of time with family, travel, cooking, freedom, amazing vacations, spending time with the people I love, helping people on a different level than we are now. Like one of the things that I'm super excited about is this thing continues to grow is the work we're doing with the Cardone Foundation for at-risk youth, inner city youth in the US, but then also We have a big project in South Africa going right now where we called the 10X Hub, where we actually take education to remote villages that don't have access to schools and they don't have transportation. And so it's this big, we got these vans, these big box vans that go out, and go out and teach kids that are so hungry for information and otherwise they would never have a shot at anything. So those are the things that are important to me. Now, the most important thing is working your way backwards. And so the question is what do you want your life to look like? And then it's well, how much is it going to take to live like that? So, I need about $5 million a year in passive income. So, that's another important point to consider is you got to decide what you want your day to look like. And if you want true freedom, you need to get some passive income. So the target isn't really 5 million, it's 5 million passive, which means I need to be at 60, 70, 80, 100 million is my number to be in a position where that's happening.
Yeah. A lot of money in Cardone Capital, right?
Everything. Everything goes there.
Hey, dude, what did it look like in the early days with Grant? What was it like?
We were flying commercial, hustling seminars.
Just you and him selling, flying commercial. You became his top sales guy and
running around chasing deals. Yeah. Waking up, our primary business was sales training to companies. A lot of people don't know that. Our entire business was teaching companies. We would go sell company owners and business owners how to sell. This whole individual business that we have in marketing, on Instagram, this all comes way later, it was cold calls to multimillionaire business owners. But we were selling this online product. We were out in LA and he used to imagine this. There was a time when everybody who signed up for Cardone University for their company, Grant would do a Skype call to kick it off. And he used to hate me because, I'd wake up and go into the office at 5:30 in the morning so that I could be ready for businesses on the East Coast that were opening at 9 a.m. their time. And so with the time change, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't coming in and then calling these guys at lunch. So we'd have to kick these customers off and they'd want to do 8:30 sales meetings with Grant. And so I'd get him out of bed at 5:30 in the morning to do a sales meeting for a team that we were kicking off.
I love
so,
it.
but he's kept that, even at the time back then, the brand wasn't anything that it is today. I mean, not even a fraction of it. And, the guy's just a grinder. At the time, he was probably worth $40 million, probably 30 or 40 million bucks. Cause he had all this real estate stuff going too.
Yeah.
But he's still hustling, picking up for the book. He's so disciplined and he's kept the things that made him successful. He's kept those his entire career, even as a billionaire now. He still will pick up the phone and try to sell the book, Yeah,
that actually, I wanted to ask that question. What's the number one thing you've learned from Grant?
I mean, he's a big thinker because of the experience that he has, So the big think is a huge one. The discipline, he's so disciplined, with everything. He doesn't get distracted. He's not chasing every fad that's coming out. He's extremely, people bring him ideas. Hey, invest in this, invest in that. He's like, dude, this is my thing. Real estate's my thing. And then through that discipline, just, doing the right thing over a long period of time, it's such a winning formula and it's so simple, but most people think that it's a trick or something. Literally, if you eat right, if you wake up early, if you exercise, if you train and develop yourself, personally, and you do that over a long period of time, things will continue to improve for you.
Yeah.
And, I guess people want the shortcut,
They want the magic pill.
Yeah.
I love it. How do you balance work and life? Work and family, I should say, because you have a wife and 2 kids.
Yeah, it's a challenge, like it's especially right now because the kids are young, and work is crazy. So it's like, trying to unplug from the work thing when you get home and you're just like, because you've been moving a million miles an hour all day. Like, it's tough. That's probably the thing that I'm struggling the most with right now is just, we've got a business that's spouting out record after record. We've got, 15 businesses within the ecosystem, 3 or 4 brand new ones that are all going to be monsters. So it requires a lot of like mental. And so the answer to your question is, how do you balance it all? Like, I think it's easy to get into the routine of valuing somebody that wants to meet with you or spend time with you in the office, treating that differently than you treat it in your personal life. And so like, we have schedules, like we're like, hey, Thursday nights and Saturday nights, we're doing date nights so that we have time to connect with each other. And, like when I can, I slide out because I live close to the office. Highly recommend that for anybody who's a high producer. Slide home for lunch real quick, get to see the boys for a little bit, get to see the wife, and then I'm out, So, you just have to be, intentional, and you have to be disciplined. It's not always easy for me. It's not always easy to put this thing down, when you're getting emails and text messages and phone calls. And so, I think that's probably one of the things that is people, look, let's face it, people that aren't involved in big things like this and have all this going on, they struggle with it. So it's not like it's a problem that only a few people have. It's just like, it affects everybody. So the answer is you just have to be intentional, and you have to have the desire to fix things or make them work better. And, guys are fixers and women are emotional communicators, and we produce. And so you have different dynamics. And so it's just like, you just have to make the effort, and for me, that's literally like booking a time on the calendar, like saying, hey, date night, play time with the kids, like putting it on the calendar. If somebody in the office was like, hey, I need to meet with you tomorrow, we need to catch up on some few things, I put the appointment in the calendar. And some people may say, oh, well, that's not very personal, but like, look, like we're in a day and age where we run our lives off computers and calendars, and, like if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
And so I know that. So I'm like, put all the important stuff on your calendar, including your family.
Yeah. It makes sense because it goes back to what you said, be intentional. So if you're going to be intentional, it's got to be on your calendar. And the reason I asked that is we just adopted a newborn. He's 2 months old.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And it's so fun, but I find that it can be tough, making that transition and shutting your work brain off. But I know Grant says there's no such thing.
It's tough. It's, and all of the masterminds and stuff that we do, that's like the thing that, that always comes back out is just like, hey, how do we balance this? How do we get on the same page? And that's actually why we had, Elena, because she has done this, Grant's not an easy person, and he's got a lot going on. And so like we had gone through and told Elena, like, you're the perfect person to go out and tell people about how to, get people on the same page and keep them that way. And so, she built out the Empire platform so that she could help get people on the same page, not just spouses, but business partners, boyfriend, girlfriend. We're actually doing a mastermind. She's running it. She runs that whole side, like the same page side of the business. She runs that whole thing, and we're doing an event, end of May, the 27th and the 28th. Where she does like a little 2-day event about that, but we do those multiple times per year. I'd recommend that anybody that's trying to figure that out, she's done it with a wild man maniac and 2 kids and keeps things rolling. So
Is that the Build Your Empire one?
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit. So like you said, Grant, you guys haven't always been this big. And I love at the marketing workshop that I was at, you showed a graph that the Google trends for Grant's name match the revenue that you guys have created. And it's really cool to see that. Actually, money really does follow attention, but what are some of the things that you guys have done over the last 10 years to really blow up?
Like our business, our business was set up for what we're doing. Like the business side of things, like, how many people are in a business or work for a business? Everyone, right? Like everybody. Yeah. And so for us, it was a matter of, we had the business thing that we were, teaching companies how to train their salespeople. But as the brand started growing, it's just like, okay, what are the things that all affect our community or our client, and how can we help them solve those problems? So from a macro level, really the way we look at the business now is, how can we help our community address the problems that they're having in different areas that all kind of fit in that vein of success. That's why, so we have, the 10X health business, like, health is something that Grant's really focused on. He's 63 years old, but he looks like he's got the Benjamin Button thing going on. Like he's, looks like he's 50. Cardone Ventures, because, business owners, when they get to a certain point, they don't know where to go next. So we want to help them scale 10, 15, 20X where they're at. You need to have a roadmap to do that. And in order to do that, you got to have somebody that's been there. That's why Brandon's such a great fit for us. Cause the thing he says, he sold this company for $155 million. What he doesn't say is that the company that he sold to, when he went to become their president, their stock was at $14 a share. And after after the acquisition, and he was with the company for 2.5 years or something like that, he took the stock from $14 a share to $91 a share. Wow. And created $2 billion worth of additional value in the company. So, Cardone Capital, people got to know where to put their money. Like the stages, our stages platform, like people need to get out and use a stage as a way to promote their business. So it's really just looking at it. How can we continue to serve the business community with companies that we can spin up and products that we can build and deliver?
I love that. What's the problem? How can we solve it?
Yeah. Because otherwise, the community, they go and they try to find out from people, who knows, if you got a phone and an Instagram account and, $500, you can run ads and you could tell the world that you're the greatest at something when you haven't really done shit. So, there's a bit of a liability by letting people go out and do that. And people trust us to deliver great products and programs. And so that's what we want to continue to do.
Yeah, makes sense. And you guys run a big sales organization, and I just got 2 more questions for you. I really appreciate your time. This has been super valuable, and I hope everyone can sift through and find all these golden nuggets and apply them into their life and take action. So you guys have, obviously sales is your bread and butter. What does it take to be a great salesperson? And can you spot it when someone comes into your team?
This goes back to the whole conversation of like, you were born to do this, you're born a salesperson. I think there's certainly personality attributes that people have that make it an easier thing for them to understand. But typically what I found is that personality driven salespeople, because I was one of these, had a great personality, was when I needed to be, I was very outgoing. I actually am not, like, I dread going to networking events and like having just like chit chat conversation. Like I dread it. So maybe I'm an extroverted introvert, if that's even possible. But, I think that they're just like, hey, I can talk to people, and I win most of the time. And that works to a degree, and it works to a certain point, and it definitely doesn't work to duplicate. And so what you have to get down to is you have to get down to a process, and skills and work on every step of that process and developing the skills behind being a successful salesperson in a way that can be replicated. Because if you want to go from 1 to 5, you've got to have something that you can teach. Yeah. And personality isn't something you can teach. A process is something that you can teach. And so that's why, our top salespeople, we're like, don't do anything. Like, we'll tell new people, do not do one single thing that person does, because that they can make that work because they have this superhuman power. And we've gotten rid of top performers before because they just can't get in line and they're a bad example. Great process, a lot of training. You can't get around training every single day. Like, if you want to be great at anything, you train every day. You go to the gym every day. You want to be a great golfer, you golf every day. You want to be a great basketball player, you do that every day. So you just got to have a commitment to improvement daily of the skill set.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
It's boring. It's such a boring answer, but it's like the only thing that works. Like, it's not learning something that you know it. It's about knowing it and drilling it so many times that you can never forget it.
Yeah.
To where you literally don't even have to think about what's happening in the engagement, and you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes Olympic athletes so incredible, because they don't even think about it. Steph Curry doesn't even think about shooting a shot. Yeah.
Exactly.
What does it take to put on an amazing event like 10X GrowthCon?
Brain damage it's just like, we've got them down pretty, like they're pretty
systematized.
They're less painless than they were in the past. Like when you put on a 35,000 person event, like we did it in Miami, that's a very different event than doing 3,000 people. And so the hardest part about doing events, 100%, is selling the ticket. People always overlook this. They're like, oh yeah, because they think that the event is about getting a venue and, figuring out food and beverage and AV. Dude, that stuff is easy. That's the easiest part of the whole thing. The hardest part about, like, if that is 5% of the event, 95% of the event is selling, marketing, and making sure that there's butts and seats.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, hands down. And if anybody who is trying to get into events called me and said, hey, I'd love to do an event, the first thing I always try to do is talk them out of it. I'm like, unless you're willing to lose money learning this, like, we had a big platform when we started doing events. So like people miss that. So if you're willing to lose 250 grand on an event, then do it. Then it might make sense for you to do it. But for most people, they're like, they see people doing events. They're like, oh, I should go do an event. No. You should build your business. You should figure out a way to get a bunch of money packed away so that you have money when you really should be doing an event. You have the money to lose 200 grand on it, putting on an event that people will actually show up to.
Yeah. And I mean, Grant said at the GrowthCon just barely, it wouldn't have been possible without the diamond tickets, which were 10 grand to pop. And how many were there? Like 500 or something. So
yeah. I mean, that still doesn't cover the cost of it,
Yeah.
They that covers a portion of it. I mean, we spent $8 million on the event. So
yeah. Last question. What does the fight against mediocrity mean to you?
Just, refusing to accept average in any area of your life.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jarrod, for being on the podcast. Sincerely appreciate you and everything you guys do to help people grow their companies. Thank you so much, man.
You're the man, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Talk to you soon.
See ya.